Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I am Nerder Doug, and tonight I am hanging out with this nerd that I'm pointing at right now.
Nerdarch is dead.
And tonight we are getting together, as we do every Monday, to talk about invisibility this week in D&D.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun topic, and I guess to kind of help out our people out there, maybe we should be seen instead of being invisible.
That's true. And we don't have any fancy special effects, so we'll just sit down. Plus, we were live when we started walking away, so people saw our clever ruse. But hey, whatever. It was fun.
How's it going tonight?
Good.
Definitely a lot of fun. A little bit of antics, as it's somewhat common with Nerdarchy.
Sure. And many nerds around the world. So yeah, I don't remember. I think it was somebody said something in chat last week. Not that we should talk about invisibility, but it just made me think about it. So I threw it out there, and that's what we decided to talk about tonight. A pretty cool topic. I last year when all the lockdowns started and movies were going like straight to streaming and stuff, that Invisible Man 2020 version came out, and I remember watching that, and I was like, wow. Like, especially for something like invisibility, I actually rewatched it this afternoon. Because it's like, we use it in D&D a lot, people cast it, there's items and creatures and everything. It's pretty powerful and scary to think there's just something you cannot see at all, like that you're fighting. And I know, that's kind of the buy-in, but
mechanically, it has definitely suffered a detriment over the course of the editions, and it is really like up to the individual, player or character as to how they're going to perceive it. Fifth edition. I was having a conversation with a friend today about the differences of the editions and how fifth edition is much more heroic. It's easier to get into that kind of mindset, and
that's a good way of putting it.
Absolutely supports that. In earlier editions, if something was invisible, like we would play guessing games with squares, or like general directions. Like, okay, I do this, unless you had like a full-on AoE, there was absolutely like chances.
Throwing flour, putting it on the floor, and all that kind of stuff. Sure. Classic things.
Right.
And to be, I wonder, did this come up in your discussion? Because I thought of it just as we were talking there. Thinking of it like in terms of how you said, like, you're more heroic and generally, not for everybody, but like sessions are shorter these days, like you advance quicker. So maybe part of that stuff, like you said, gets lost because it's like, we're not like that was back in the days when like, you'd play a session and just count your progress by like, okay, we got through 4 rooms or whatever, and it's like, because you would take like 30 minutes in a room, just like, I'm going to put flour on the ground. I'm going to, do all this other stuff to test for those sorts of things, because they were just dangers everywhere. Like the invisible stalkers is a classic one. I mean, it's just an invisible force that wants to murder you. Why? I don't know. Well, or maybe they're supposed to be crazy like the original Invisible Man. That was, he lost his mind because he was invisible and just could not be seen by the world.
Couldn't interact in a normal way, and that's going to cause issues. That's going to give you an issue. It's going to give you problems. Let's face it. We are social creatures, and therefore people want that. Oh, you walk in a room. Hi, how are you doing? So like when you do that and nothing transpires, it's going to psychologically affect you over time.
Yeah, so that's almost you're talking about for the invisible creature, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's almost like a curse in some ways, to think like, because I was just thinking like in the before times, if you're sitting at a restaurant or a coffee shop and just anybody walked in, people's natural reactions to look, except you just never be seen or acknowledged your presence at all. That's weird.
I mean, if the door opens and there's no one that's there, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, that's weird," and some will be like, "Oh, was that the wind? What's going on?" Some people might be like, "Oh my God, that's weird. I can't understand."
There is a presence there, so some people might just pick up on that. I mean, that's like
there are people who have a more natural affinity towards the presence of other people,
Mhm.
whether you can see them or not. So
That's what's scary, to think of like in D&D terms, using like invisible creatures, not even just like, in combat, but at any time in a party's adventures, there could be an invisible stalker or somebody with a cloak of invisibility or just somebody that casts invisibility or whatever, just standing right by them. So you could really freak people out every once in a while with just subtle things like, maybe there's an odd, like a perfume or something or a cologne in the air or whatever, or like a footprint.
or something moves. It could
Yeah.
literally, if you've got something that's
Yeah.
invisible, you've got the capacity to influence things that other people won't acknowledge. I was actually watching a show on Netflix, just the other day. It's called Fate: The Winx Saga. I think
Okay.
it's pronounced. But
I think I just saw like an ad for that today or something.
It was definitely good. No, I'm not going to give any kind of spoilers as to what's transpired, but at one point in time there is definitely invisibility involved, and like the first time something happened, I'm like, okay, why did that freak somebody out? And apparently, I wasn't reading into the scene, and somebody else, there was, and it makes sense, once you put together all the pieces. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense now, but at the time it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But you could do all kinds of things. A lot of my family is very much ingrained in set procedures. They don't like things changed.
Okay.
My son was given the option of going back to a hybrid schedule, and he's like, I don't want to have to think about what day it is and to what my school schedule is going to be. Can I just do virtual all week? And I'm like, sure, that makes it great for me, makes it great for you.
Mm-hmm.
Done and done. But when things are out of place, when a tool goes missing or a thing goes missing, all kinds of craziness can wind up transpiring among the party or among the individuals involved. So you could really muck around with the characters' heads with just someone being invisible.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and I keep thinking of like invisible stalkers because it's like they're one of the few creatures like they're just invisible. You can't make them visible. That doesn't go away. They're just invisible. So it's not going to run out. And that could really, yeah, that could be quite interesting plot device to use. And then, if you just seeded little things like that, like maybe they just knock a book over, not all the time, but like, and you play for months or maybe even years or something. And then like to reveal that something like that would be pretty astonishing for the players to think back and be like, oh my God, that was what that was all those times. And in a lot of ways like that, I guess any kind of thing, any scenario that involves interactions with another creature in D&D has potential to lead to combat in which the players will just overcome the thing. So it's kind of like horror games in general in that regard. It's like, well, you have to have some sort of buy-in. But on the other hand, I mean, something like an invisible stalker or a green hag, actually, they have an interesting invisibility power. I forget what what it's called, but it's like they can just be invisible, and it's as if they had concentration, but just doesn't break like until that time never runs out. Like so they could just follow. I mean, and what a great if you want to have some like cunning enemy like stalking characters.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the invisible and stalker, isn't that an elemental?
I believe so. I don't know if it always was. I mean, I don't think they used to have like codified everything like that, but I think it is. Yeah, it's like an air elemental type now.
So like that could even you could bend and twist things around. Like, all right, I want to use an invisible stalker not as an assassin, but as a manipulation tool. I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna play those games with them. I'm gonna have things disappear or moved. When they're not looking, I'm gonna do all of this. And if it's an air elemental, like you could just have it like, oh no, it doesn't have feet. It doesn't leave footprints. So there's no way to track it. There's no way to do whatever. You might say, oh well, the ground is must have been the wind. And there's no real way to really get into, the easy to discover aspects. But if someone discovers like, oh, well, can I make a perception check to here, and they identify, you could have it, have
good luck, man. Yeah, high stealth bonus too.
You could have a cool power where, like, all right, as a reaction, it dissipates and it goes somewhere else. It's a unique invisible stalker because it's not there for combat. It's there to observe. It's there to have things going on, and it's a plot device to use later.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so invisible that even if you have true seeing, you could just see a vague outline. I don't know if this was always part of like D&D lore or whatever, but yeah, they are a type of air elemental, and they're summoned for a sole purpose to retrieve objects or slay a creature. And when it does that, it just expires and vanishes in a gust of wind. And like if you don't give it a task immediately, it just goes, just dissipates. But it's like resentful of the summoner. It says it resents any undertaking assigned to it. A mission that requires significant time might drive the invisible stalker to pervert the intent of a command, unless it is worded very carefully. Yeah, they're pretty interesting creatures. Now that I don't remember. I probably just didn't even care that much in earlier editions to like really think about like what does that mean in the description. So I don't remember if they were like that. I just remember they throw around in dungeons a lot and try to strangle people and stuff.
Chris in the chat says, Invisible Stalker is a bodyguard or a guardian angel watching over a PC.
Yeah, and again, right, obviously you could just change all the lore and stuff too. It's
just, perhaps there's a reason. I mean, typically elementals fall, neutral on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. It is neutral.
But, for all intents and purposes, that is generally, you've got to bend as you need. If you've got someone who's, chaotic neutral or chaotic evil,
mm-hmm.
you want to have, observing or doing something specific, you can, especially if it's linked to the story. And if you're looking to do something that's interesting, if you're looking to play the long game, that's where I think this could come into play.
Maybe it's a cursed person that's invisible and they can't talk or anything either, and they're trying to get somebody to help them. Could be somebody that would be a really interesting thing to like pull out of a character's backstory. Like if somebody was missing, like a lost relative or something or friend or whatever. That to just kind of like slow burn that for a while in your campaign. That'd be pretty cool. I'm gonna actually.
Well, there's a reason why this is, usually D&D ideas.
Yeah, I think half of them are ones we come up with for ourselves. But hey, feel free to use them too.
So while you're jotting that note down, double underscore says, I'm going to listen tonight while customizing some new minis.
Ooh, that's cool.
Are you kit bashing or are you painting? I myself went into a little bit of a frantic the last couple of days because I'm like, oh, I've got all these games coming up this week and I got to run 3 of them. So I'm actually was working on a mini for my game that I thought was Saturday, but realized I have got weeks before that. So it's just the game that I'm running tomorrow night, as well as session 1 of the new game starting Friday. So
hey, we got Keywood Publishing in the house.
Hey.
Greetings. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful ability, in fiction and of course in D&D. And it's one of those ones too that like it's worth. I don't know about like keeping in mind all the time when you're the DM, but it's one of those ones that can certainly like, oh, I didn't think of that. Like if players like, well, just turn invisible and do that, right? Or when you're giving out, if you're handing out magic items too, something like a cloak or a ring, which I forget. There's like a subtle distinction between the two of those. I think isn't a ring like the cloak is like greater invisibility, or well, I don't know. One of them seems better than the other, but they're both really powerful.
I don't know, which one is the more powerful. I want to say the ring.
Yeah, just because
of the one ring.
Yeah, let's see the ring. While wearing the while wearing the ring, you can turn invisible as an action, and you remain invisible and till you the normal stuff. The cloak, you can just pull its hood. You can pull the hood up to become invisible. Doesn't say it's an action or anything. Become visible. And it says you become visible when you cease wearing the. Oh no, yeah, it takes an action. Yeah, that's like greater invisibility, the cloak. So I would say that's better.
Okay, well,
it's only for a certain amount of time per day, but it's like if you got the hood up, you're invisible. It's like Sheila from the D&D cartoon.
the D&D cartoon.
It's Sheila versus Frodo.
Well, apparently Sheila's is better.
Yeah, hey man, she didn't have visions of a great eye. She could remember the taste of strawberries. And she was invisible. That's a deep cut.
Yeah. I'm certain that there's plenty of grognards that are out there who know exactly what you're talking about.
That's a bleak scene. Like, remember that, Mr. Frodo? Nope. Chris Hausnick, will they delve the dungeon in tomorrow night's episode? That's the plan. It's an even numbered episode. That means it's time to get our game face on.
Indeed. They're looking to head in and give their first run. We'll find out how many teams have already gone in ahead of them and what the points will look like for those other teams.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because some people already.
Some people will have gone.
Will have gone.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Black Razor's Revenge was the first one up on the roster. So we'll see what scores look like.
What a fun game.
Yeah,
it's especially fun because I don't think we all were kind of like, look, I don't care if we win. I'm not expecting like we're gonna be. I mean, it's be cool, obviously, but it's like, if there's whether you actually have some point system or not, it's like we're just having fun playing. So I'm sure like. None of us have that expectation. Like we're gonna be like, oh man, we do, Although I'm saying that now, who knows? 3 months from now, you'd be like, what? Off Game says they're DMing a game where an assassin's guild uses invisibility to strike and psionic attacks to not leave tracks, so it'll be hard for the players to crack. You should take a look at the Mind Murder Monk, I think it was, video. That was from last Friday because we had one of our character build guides, and there's an NPC version in the Pay What You Want PDF. That's the Mind Killer, which was a CR 11, I think. Basically, like psionic ninja. Pretty cool. Changeling, I think it was. Yes.
Yeah, I believe that was a changeling.
They were pretty neat, and they were all about being undetected,
helping them blend in. So I would definitely kind of fit in with that style.
Yeah, that's almost a kind of invisibility in and of itself. But you can still be seen. You're just not as yourself. Yeah, that's stuff.
I mean, technically, that is another level of invisibility.
Sure.
And if you want to go,
hey, we got to fill an hour. We can stretch the definition.
But I mean, invisibility. There's invisible creatures. There's a spell. There's magic items. And there's so many different ways to use it, and I don't know if there's anybody, and please, if you're in the chat or if you're watching this later, throw it into the comments. Is there anyone who still wants to use those old rules for invisibility?
What were they? Do you remember? Like,
well, basically, if someone was invisible, you had no idea what square they were in.
Oh, you mean like you just couldn't, like, as opposed to now where it's just disadvantage on the attack.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a big difference.
I mean, that is drastically different. I mean, I've had things where like attack.
Yeah, if you could find some way to get advantage, you basically could just roll.
Right.
Like they're like they're not invisible at all. Just,
I was playing a game, not this past Saturday, but Saturday before, and we were looking at a book. And the book, was being read by another character, because I didn't know that language.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
love that stuff.
My arcana on it. So I'm like, can I make a roll with disadvantage? And Dave's like, go for it. I double critted.
Oh, that's what he was talking about?
I rolled 2 natural 20s.
Cool.
On that. And it's like, damn.
That's awesome.
You
I
know,
always think it's weird when like people will say that and they'll be like, yeah, it was just on like a knowledge check or whatever. It's like it's still cool,
oh,
right? Like to
absolutely.
think like it was that hard that you had that odds stacked against you, even if it was just a regular roll, and like
So like,
you had a low chance. So that's awesome.
yeah, I don't think I've ever done that before on a disadvantage.
I don't think I never have.
But to have those situations where it's like, all right, you know, it's just disadvantage. Whereas in earlier, rule sets, like there was no chance. Like, all right, I'm gonna attack that square. I'm gonna try this thing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, that thing's not there.
I suppose that kind of like cleaves into your point earlier about it being like a heroic version where it's like, and how we kind of dovetailed into like, just slower pace of play. It's just like, because it's just boring. Like to be like, okay, I'm going to throw a flower in the air and stuff like that. And you players probably do that now and just cancel the disadvantage and boom, there you go. You can just make a regular roll.
And to me, like, even though it's cliche, I like those classic elements. I like
mm-hmm. Yeah, they're cool.
But how many characters?
They're cliche because they're cool and they work.
But how many characters like, oh yeah, I carry flower. Now, I mean,
is there still a spell? I can't. What was that spell called? Like glitter dust? Was that the name of it? Like it was basically like a cloud of stuff to reveal.
I don't think there's a glitter dust in the.
Was that the name of it then? I know it was a spell like that.
I really don't remember.
All right.
I mean, now there's guiding bolt, which roll and offers advantage. Which that I've used on somebody who has was invisible or was really
or fairy fire.
Fairy fire is another.
A lot of people cast that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good one.
Which is weird because like it's often just against visible enemies, so everybody just has advantage. Whereas like I think part of its original intent back in the day was to reveal invisible. I mean, that's it. That's part of what it does.
It was called fairy fire because fairies were typically,
had
that whole invisibility aspect.
Right. There was one of the comments I wanted to address. Oh, invisibility is nice because it's very easy to understand how it works, but one condition that's confusing is charm. Yeah, I mean, I can see because it's more like interpretive and stuff,
Yeah, because like charm is not necessarily defined. It's like, all right, I'm charmed. I consider you a friend, but how good a friend? What are you asking me to do here? Where like some aspects are like, oh, you're dominated, you're going to attack the nearest thing, where other things are just, oh, you'll do what you would do for a friend. I'm like, well, I'm not going to kill that friend because he's a friend too.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you and Dave are my friends, but if you're like, go kill that guy, I'd be like, oh, what? No. Look, we're friends, okay? But I guess that's a saying. What is it? A true friend helps you hide the bodies or something like
that. A true friend, a friend helps you move. A true friend helps you move bodies.
Yeah.
I've also heard the phrase, a friend will bail you out of jail. A true friend will be sitting next to you saying, man, that was fun.
That's a good one. That's totally a D&D-ish thing.
But to answer or to reference what __ was saying, he says, I'm doing both slicing, stabbing, and pasting. You give me an earful. Well, __ I'd love to see what you're working on. I love minis. I love seeing customizations. It's definitely a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We've got a pedantic question, which I like them because it involves the meaning of words. So.
Uh-oh. I didn't see that one.
It was off game by Charmed. The problem is a Charmed NPC won't die for me, but he likes me. They love me. I always think Charm is like seduction. Maybe it's the wording. I highly doubt it's like seduction. They can't attack you or target you with harmful abilities, and you have advantage on ability checks to interact socially with creatures. So nothing about dying there.
The showdown in the jungle against.
I mean, in a sense, it's like it is, whether it's a spell or something ability, it's usually a supernatural like effect that's charming them. So I mean, you're basically mesmerizing them. It's like, well, they don't, they're like in the movie where they're just like, oh, okay, I'll do whatever, like they're not acting under their will. You have mesmerized them.
Yeah,
Right?
well, like mesmerize, falls more into dominate, than when it's like, okay, you're gonna do exactly what I say. That's there. You're charmed and you're dominated. That's very different than just the straight up charmed. But Chris says in the chat, the showdown in the jungle against the predator is a good example of role playing ideas for dealing with invisibility in a more natural setting. And yeah, that is clear cut truth. The predator is legitimately that, the best at being invisible, and that you can definitely learn a lot and use a lot of ideas from watching those movies.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I guess going on about the charm. I mean, it is a magical enchantment, so it is like maybe they don't have like swirling eyeballs and stuff, but it's like,
So
yeah, I mean, the predator, a good example of that's just Dwargar, right? I mean, they're in their wilderness setting is deep below the earth, and I mean, how scary is that? It's like even if you get your dark vision and your gloom stalkers and all that, it's like there could be Dwargar hunting parties or drow or whatever. There's tons of crazy ass creatures in the Underdark, but that's a strange like pair of abilities that Dwargar have. It's really neat with the enlarge and the invisibility, but it's like why? Like, what is the what's the what I mean? Like, mind players can't turn invisible or enlarge, so why would their time there have made them able? Or were those gifts that their deity bestowed on them to get them?
I don't know enough about the Dwargar history beyond the time that they were kidnapped by the Illithid, spent however long it was as slaves, and then they earned their freedom. I don't know where in all of that they those magical abilities.
Yeah. I'm thinking more about it. I'm really stuck on this now. So like in the charm person spell, it says the charmed creature regards you as a friendly acquaintance. So, as I often do in these things, I like to think about it in relatable terms. And it's like, well, who do I know that's a friendly acquaintance? Just people that you might run into while you're at the store or something.
Right.
And it's like, well, maybe you could interpret it like that moment. It's like they think like, oh, I know, like I know, I remember you. Oh yeah, this guy's awesome. We go way back. We went to high school together.
That person you went to high school with, is kind of meh.
Are you in the middle of this fight? Oh man, I'm fighting too. Isn't that weird that we just met each other? Why am I swinging my sword at you? You're cool, man. All right, there you go. Boom, roasted.
That is hilarious. I'm gonna have to try and remember that one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things that come up are fun to think about in those kind of just like personable terms. Like, well, what does that really mean, a friendly acquaintance? There is, I can't think of the name. Isn't there some kind of like invisible creatures that like they can only be seen by like little kids or something like that? In 5th edition, it was in some book.
I am not familiar with that one.
I'm going to attempt to find it, but every now and again, I like to mention in like our social media posts our own Nerdarchy contribution to invisibility, which is invisible rust monsters. Which that often people are like, you guys are just messed up,
Well, I think beyond invisible rust monsters, the trust monsters far more stuff than that. So
the invisible rust monsters are kind of like special to me, I guess, because that was when we were getting like other creators to sort of like reinterpret or some video ideas and stuff, and that was Critical Hit Publishing with like DBJ and stuff. And this, I was just looking through it, before we did this chat because I wanted to talk about it. I haven't looked at it in years. I'm like, this is pretty cool. It's like, they really did a neat job. It's like this whole little region, and there's like a village and stuff, and there's not really like an inciting incident that I recall, but there's like an alchemist, and I believe he's experimenting with making potions of invisibility and giving them to local wildlife and stuff. And it just like gets out of control, but there's like all kind of crazy like these tables to run. Like if you can mix your own potions like in his lab and stuff, and they do all sorts of things. And there's I think the main boss monster's a mutated troll that like is also affected by those things. Every round it like changes. So yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, I was looking through. I'm like, this is really nice little thing with like it has a big lighthouse tower where the alchemist's lab is. It's far from town, and there's just like invisible bears and rust monsters wandering around the wilderness.
For those viewers, is that something that they would be able to acquire or purchase?
Absolutely, they can go over to Nerdarchy the store. It's called Wystone Horror. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I think it was one of the earlier ones that we put up there. And if they want to sign up for the newsletter or Patreon, if you signed up for the newsletter and Patreon, you get 2 individual $9.99 store credits. You could get out of the box for like $5, PDF, not the hardcover. But yeah.
So Off Game says, how about the invisible servant? Why can't they swing a butler's knife? It's unseen. They're not quite invisible. But the unseen servant, it's just a restriction of the magic. They're too weak to kind of wield a weapon or attack. They're meant to,
Oh, I love that spell.
Yeah, it's absolutely fabulous.
So much fun stuff you can do with it.
Was actually one of the things that Lazy Me was considering for the D.
Oh yeah. Spells that you'd want to have in real life. What was that? One of those questions?
That was one of the questions. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be. Invisible an unseen servant can give you back rubs after a long day of adventuring, or foot rubs.
Absolutely.
Carry stuff. You could even have it carry the torch ahead of you, so that if someone shoots arrows at it, it's like, oh, we're just gonna hit that.
Well, I don't have things where I'm going to be getting shot at with arrows.
No, but I mean, just you can have it. You could put a cloak over it and have it. It still has a humanoid shape. You could put clothes on it. It could, if you had like a hooded cloak and stuff, it could just be a distraction.
Absolutely. I mean, there's it's literally open to whatever your creativity will allow.
Oh yeah, Mesmogdu loved getting back rubs from his invisible servant. Often while the other people were doing like laborious stuff in the daytime. I told him every time, I'm like, I'm not going to be very good in the day. So I would take any opportunity to sit in the shade when people were like investigating, the turned over cart on the road. Like, okay, wake me up when you're done. I'm going to ritually cast Unseen Servant. Which kind of goes back to, I don't know if it's live on the channel or I just was watching it in Dropbox, but like video about dark vision and stuff, where it's like people that could, like to drown Dwargar and even surface elves and stuff, like, but especially these underground races, it's like, why do we have to adventure in the day? We can all see at night. It's like, there's less people out.
All right, so we've crossed the halfway.
Oh wow, really? Jeez, that flew by.
Yeah, I'm showing 8:32.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go into minor PSA mode.
Sure.
I know some of you in the chat were already talking about it, but tomorrow night over here on the channel is Dungeons and Delving episode 2 with yours truly as the GM. You can get to see the reality-based competition show set in the future with adventuring heroes for profit and fame. So we'll get to see what that's like. But that's not the only game that you're going to see me on. I will be also running another game this Friday on, again, this channel. We had an issue with the name, or a change in the name. So it's Untraditionally Arcane, the All Wizard D&D party. We'll be starting off Friday night for episode 1. Definitely looking forward to some crazy antics with the Chaos crew after a little bit of a hiatus. And then 2 of those players are also with me in a game over on Mini Train Domain on Twitch on Thursday night, where I don't know if it's happening this Thursday or next Thursday, but Yours truly has been preparing for a long time to actually do an in-game ritual to benefit the party, or possibly just one of them. And there's been some out-of-game conversations happening. I'm really excited, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So if you want to,
In Dawnbringers?
yes, the Dawnbringers.
Oh, what ritual?
I don't want to give away spoilers.
Okay. Oh, sure. I didn't know if it was. Yeah, never mind.
It's going to be lots of fun, but my barbarian cleric paladin is going to do a forging ritual of some kind or another.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you told me about that. Yeah, that's cool.
It's going to be a blast. So yeah.
Yeah. So your new Chaos Crew game starts this week?
That is this Friday, episode 1.
Oh yeah, last Friday of the month.
Yep, last Friday of the month. Usually, unless there's some kind of scheduling issue, and it's untraditionally arcane because no one is one of the 8 primary schools of wizard.
Really?
Yes, that was the preset that I put in.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay, that's really cool.
So we've got some things that are, we've got an Order of the Scribe, we've got a Graviturgy Wizard, we've got a Beardomancer, we've got a Blade Singer, and we've got an Onomancer.
Isn't that what Order of the Scribe was when it was Unearthed Arcana?
No, I think Onomancy is out of Deep Magic.
Oh, okay. I thought it was that. Whatever. But that's cool. That should be a really fun game.
Yeah. I won't give any.
That's a neat kind of just parameter on it too.
And I've already given them the concept of where the game is going to start and why they can't be one of the 8 primary schools.
Oh, okay.
So
that's part like baked into the.
It's baked into it. It's not just like, hey, play something weird and let's have fun.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's pretty smart. And what was the name of it again? Untraditionally
arcane.
I like that.
One person suggested, just arcane traditions, and I'm like, what if we kind of go the other direction?
Mm-hmm.
So it's technically a UA.
Yeah, that's neat.
I've got a box here, and with it being the last Monday of the month, it's going to be one of those things that next week, when it's going to be Dave and I, it's time to do another giveaway. This box that, even though it says Wizards Confidential or WizKids Confidential, I'm allowed to talk about it. I'm allowed to share it.
Oh, cool.
And I've already showed this on the live chat before, but this entire box of minis, all of those cool things. This way, there we go.
Is it the Magic the Gathering ones?
This is the Magic the Gathering Wave 13.
That's got that Sphinx and stuff that you wrote the post about. Oh yeah, that looked cool.
It's got a demon. It's got a ghost council with 5 spectral ghosts.
Yeah.
Things that could be player character races. Looks like a cool angel looking thing. It's an absolutely fabulous set.
Yeah.
And due to an error on WizKids' part, they sent me an extra box. So they're like, give it away. So this is going to somebody out there.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we automatically put our patrons in. We automatically add in anyone who, goes through the website.
And the newsletter we're going to add too. So if you sign up for those things are pretty dope right now. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get like $10 in the store, a PDF gift. I don't know, there's a bunch of other stuff I don't remember. My brain just had a brain fart, but yeah, you get quite a few things.
So
tips delivered right to your inbox once a week. I mean, come on.
we'll be processing that out next week. I'll put a list together and randomly determine who gets it, and there we go.
The a skulk is the creature I was thinking of, by the way. It's in Tome of Foes. So it's invisible, and it says this invisibility can be circumvented by 3 things. The skulk appears as a drab, smooth-skinned humanoid if its reflection can be seen in a mirror. It appears as a dim, translucent form in the light of a candle made of fat rendered from a corpse whose identity is unknown. And humanoid children 10 and under can see through its invisibility. How weird is that?
That is all kinds of messed up.
Yeah, it's just a humanoid too. It's not like an undead creature or anything. That's what it is, a skulk.
Weird.
Yeah. Here we go. They're the soulless shells of travelers who become lost in the Shadowfell and wander the gray wastes until they lose all sense of self. Damn, that's a sad story.
Jeez.
Kind of like harsh my mellow there.
Well, not everything in D&D is, flowers and butterflies.
Yeah.
So.
It's not all unicorns, but yeah, that's pretty. Actually, isn't there all those like despair creatures and all that stuff?
There's a lot that's there. So, all right, my business is taken care of. Next week we'll do a giveaway. We'll announce what the next thing is, which I'll have to figure out based on the shelf down here.
Yeah,
books will probably.
It's a new year. You just gotta start filling up again, or is it so overflowed that you've been giving all that stuff away?
I mean, we gave away over $300 worth of stuff in beginning of the month. But I mean, I've got a pretty decent full shelf here.
Cool.
So who knows?
Wait, can you believe? I mean, it's like we had New Year and everything, and now the January is almost over already. It's like, wow, really? Only a week left. PJ is totally sticking a skulk in their Cthulhu game. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's pretty.
Yeah, they're definitely a Cthulhuan creature.
That's on you. It's neat to see like an unusual thing like that in a stat block too. It's like if you burn a candle made from the fat of a corpse of an unknown person, you can see, like it's almost kind of like folklore-ish. But at the same time, it's like, well, like. In a game, again, that's one of those sort of horror things. It's like, or you can just deal with the disadvantage, and it's a CR 1/2 creature with 18 hit points. So, first of all, probably smoke it like around,
Sorry, looking at the chat.
Oh, sure. So yeah, it's like that part of D&D is often tricky to deal with, unless you just are playing in a group where combat's not a big importance to them.
Well,
like those sorts of things.
That's always the the thing to look at is what is the focus of the game? What is
actually your game's a good example of that, because like I think a lot of us, we're making our characters and making choices. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, this would be good in the context of Ted's game. Like the spell or whatever. It's like, right. Whereas if you were just like a traditional, kick in the door sort of person, I would not take illusory script, for example.
Yeah, you wanna prepare your character for the things that they're going to actually, be involved in. If your character is not going to be doing your typical dungeon delving, what kind of things are they going to be doing? An urban game versus a wilderness game, has a core difference, a core thing that is going to make a difference on how you make your character, how you prepare your character. I've seen hex crawl games and urban games and dungeon delve games, and more we're just going to do more free form. There's going to be less combat. There's going to be just kind of whatever. For a while I ran games where everything was, basically cyclical, where we started in town and we ended either back in town or assuming you made it back to town. Regardless of how long that session went, that was always going to be,
Yeah, I was going to say, that's always been a challenging thing, when you think like, you start a new campaign, like I'm going to do that. That way, if people don't show up, it's like they're still in time. Never works for me. It's like they never make it back to town, like at the end of the session. Usually because it's like people only have like if you can get people to commit to like 3 hours tops, it's like okay, well you got to be back there. But
you have when going down that. I know we're way off of invisibility.
Yeah, that's right. We always we'll come back around.
But it's a process of like how important is what you're trying to do. You can't have your typical dungeon. You talk about like, oh, we got through 4 rooms tonight.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a dungeon with 4 rooms. I've had issues where like I've wanted to do more, but I realized I'm like, oh, well, if I go down this road, we're gonna spend 3 to 4 sessions in the dungeon, and it's gonna be mostly this type of stuff, and that kind of breaks away from what the rest of the campaign has done. I did in the one game, like the entire session was like a 3-floor wizard's tower, and it was fight, fight, fight. And by the time they got to the third fight, which was supposed to be the biggest, they were already drained.
Oh, really?
But
Because it was unusual for like your usual player groups.
Yeah,
you don't normally do it. Yeah.
That particular group was aware, like, oh, we do one combat at night.
It can definitely be shocking when you play it with new people.
and you just unload and you go to the second room and oh my god, there's another fight, and you go to the third room and oh my god, there's another fight. Like I had it set up that like no matter what the top of that wizard's tower they wanted to lose, it was
right.
Yeah, it was a trap. It was set up. So like even though they had a lot of spells to cast, it was a simulacrum. It was told fight but die.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, oh, I could cast Cone of Cold right now and kill the entire party.
That's a powerful spell, man. Yeah, the few times I've like used it as a DM in games, or just like a lot of things, but that one in particular, I can remember at least a few times where it's like, oh man, that's a lot of dice. Like, yikes! How many hit points did you guys have? I definitely froze that. It's funny for his like awesome amongst the rest of the party as the this wood elf monk was in this campaign we played for a long time. Was it's like he's the only one. He died several times. He was petrified. He was frozen to death by Cone of Cold. Another time. But yeah, that's a very powerful spell. Ooh, a question from Double Underscore. How do you feel about the Warlock invocation that makes you unseen until you move? I just made a meme about that the other day. What about Clash Tower using that in their telepathy? It's like, well, if you want to stand in the same place and unmoving, okay. I don't think it's like OP or anything. I mean, that's pretty precise if you move at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I think in the context that means like not if you move 5 feet, if you move, like you're supposed to be like, remaining unmoving.
So I mean, it would definitely work. Like you would still be able to communicate with others, and be in place. So it would be good for an ambush setup or what have you. Of like, all right, I'm gonna get in place, and I'm just gonna stand here and wait. And you sit there and wait, and be like, okay, all right, the dude came out. All right, the dude's walking in your direction. The dude's passing me. I'm behind him. He's about to turn the corner. All right, go. You could definitely have fun with those kind of setups.
Oh, sure.
But it's a scenario of it's not game breaking.
Right.
You have to be the one to initiate. How useful these kinds of things are. If you've got a good GM, you definitely have something.
I just saw their follow-up.
Yeah, all right, we'll get to that part in a moment. Anytime you have interesting abilities and you want to be able to play them in the game, it's really up to you to kind of instigate. Let you know, hey, I want to be able to do X. I really want to do Y. Us here at Nerdarchy, we have the desire to make tools known that they are a thing. They're absolutely a part of this game. Legitimately, the very first role in the Dungeons and Delvers one was a cooking check.
That's right.
Cooking utensils roll. So yeah, it happens. I got forging in my in my game last session with the Dawnbringers, and
that's right. You've done a lot of that kind of stuff in that campaign. That's been cool.
I mean, it's if you're worshiping the god of forging, you should darn well get some forging done, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of those things speak to, like you let off with is like player motivated things. Like they're playing their characters, they're role playing.
But to touch and double on the scores, an NPC messing with players, I already do quite a lot of voices in my players' heads. At least in my main game, my off camera game, there's definitely a lot of that. Right now, there's a goblin shrunken head that's a magic item in the party that's sentient.
Oh, yeah.
There is the eye of some kind of beholder-esque creature that one of the players who had removed his eye, kind of like a la Odin style.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that inside of his head.
The Eyeless Seer?
Eyeless Seer, yep. Who worships Bob, baby whose name is not spoken. And then there is a sentient cloak that's a magic item that is kind of like an agent of chaos.
Ooh, that's cool. You know what I was thinking, for like an NPC like that, maybe there's some kind of like Mr. Mixospitalic or Batmite sort of creature. I guess they're sort of different. Like Batmite is a fan of Batman and is putting him in like precarious situations because it's like Batman's the best, like he's gonna do it. and Mr. Mixospitalic isn't invisible, but just sort of like an impish like fan, a twisted fan of the party, to like mess with them. So it's like maybe they're not causing them danger, but just like annoying them, and or like maybe they are getting them embroiled in situations like, you guys can do it. Like it's just this voice they hear in their head every now and or yeah, because they would have telepathy if it was invisible, and and then maybe even after a while, if they knew, like found out who this person was, like, and cause them to become visible, it would almost be like comical, so like, you would get like you made us do this, or like you got us into this situation. Yeah, invisibility can get you into and out of a lot of different things. I like that idea. I actually wrote it down.
You can have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff. But someone talking directly into your players' minds, part of that is going to be how much of the players going to buy into the concept. Is it creepy? If like, oh well, you don't know if it's your thoughts or somebody else's. If they're not used to dealing with telepathy, it could be a little disconcerting. Are you not used to dealing with Kalishtar? Are they an oddity or rarity or unknown in the particular region where these players are and are from? That could be like, what the flip. I mean, I know that in the real world, every so often I'll hear something, and if I'm unable to identify what that sound was, that could be bothering. And if you go into a magical world where like that's the next level, that's the next step, like it could be like, all right, where is this coming from? And like it could drive them crazy. Again, if the players have the buy-in, and that's the concept you're looking
for. Right. Yeah, so many things about these games, starting with invisibility on down the line, just depends on the level of, like putting yourself in the character's shoes sort of things too. I mean, if you just look at invisibility, like, well, it gives you advantage on this and disadvantage on this and that, sure. I mean, then it's just gamey, which is fine, but, when you start thinking about like, what is that like? Like, one of the scary, I don't want to spoil it, but like one of the scarier scenes in that Invisible Man movie, it's pretty good. I liked it. It's just like a totally mundane, everyday thing going on, and then just something like super shocking happens because it's visible and he was around. So yeah, I mean, just anything could happen at any time. Like, and these invisible creatures don't have to be focused on the party either. Like, they could just be nearby. Like if there's an invisible assassin and somebody just like at the market square, like all of a sudden like blood starts shooting out of their jugular and they drop to the ground, and and then maybe like somebody nearby gets blamed, right? Like, well, you were the only one there. Could be pretty mysterious, and
I've used greater invisibility against the party.
Yeah.
It is dangerous when it's like, all right, you have no idea where this person is, and you know, if you play it, where they move and then attack, like they move, attack, and move, like you could technically like, all right, what are you trying to do? How are you ascertaining where they are? Like, if they're not in your square, how are you knowing where to go to attack them? So like, I'm not gonna give you that aspect.
Right.
So I used a little bit of the older style of D&D.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a lot more. I was gonna say it's a lot more tricky, like theater of the mind. But even on a grid, it's like you'd probably take. I don't know. Would you like if something turned invisible? Would you take the mini away or just put like a ring? Like he's invisible. I think I would take it away, right? Because it's like if you're a melee fighter, you might just like there's no chance because it's just not there. Right?
I didn't put a mini on the map.
Yeah. Okay.
He went invisible, and that was just
that makes sense.
Sure. Because if I have a mini on the map, then you can be like, oh well, I'm going to march over and
right.
smack him. How do you know he's there?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Mini. No. How does your character know that's where the guy is?
I was thinking more about like the scene I was describing a moment ago, and it's like those are the kind of things too that can really make a game have more verisimilitude, right? Like say some summoner, maybe hundreds of miles away, summoned an invisible stalker and just wanted like some whatever farmer killed, right? Who knows? Maybe it was some guy that had arrived and he was like hiding out as a farmer, like with sec or program. But and that happens nearby the players, and the invisible stalker would just turn to a gust of air because it completed its thing. There's no trace of it. And it's like those are the kind of plot hooks that maybe the players just don't care and go on about their day, and because it wasn't targeting them. But maybe it leads to a whole thing, like you find out like who these people were, or who trace it back to the summer. That could be like a really intriguing, like mystical investigation of like, can we, I'm sure people would probably want to like, is there any kind of like magical residue when the thing was there? Is there a trail, or just that would be pretty intriguing. Or they could just ignore it because it wasn't about them. It's just something that went on. I know Dave likes doing that kind of stuff too, just like throwing out hooks, and it's like maybe they'll go for it.
That is Dave's. Dave loves throwing breadcrumbs out there and like see how many different open plot threads there could possibly be, and if somebody like is actually keeping track, it's like, all right, that's a lot of things. And there's been so many that I've missed that I didn't even realize that was a potential plot thread. But I mean that's always Dave's style. And,
it almost like forces the players to be motivated, because it's like, if you don't want to do anything, like nothing's gonna happen. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. It sort of like gives you those dramatic choices, like because you can't do everything.
And this is again off topic, but I mean it's a scenario where like somebody brought up to us a while ago about like, hey, I was running a prepared module, and the players were so interested in the side quest that I came up with that they never wanted to go back to like the main quest. And it's like, all right, well, maybe somebody else took care of that, maybe not. Just keep doing the things that those characters are interested in doing, because clearly the players are having fun. And that's the important part. Regardless of what plot threads are out there, as the GM, it's up to you. Whatever things don't get answered, and answer them however you want, and allow the players or the characters to continue on with whatever their story is. And it might come back to full circle, like, oh well, crap, I really wish we would have dealt with this back then, because now all of this happened.
Yeah.
But it really depends upon what the story is that you want to tell and the players want to tell. Like, ultimately, it's a social game where we're all there to have fun, to hang out, and more importantly, again, to have fun.
Yeah.
So like, you don't want to put pressure. You don't want to cause, oh, I wrote all this material and I want to use it. Find a way to bring it back. If you don't care, then don't care. Move on to whatever else.
Wise words, Ted.
It's been said by others. It's been said many times. You know, I think fun is the most important aspect.
Sure. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, yeah. Like you said, I mean, that's all bundled up with all like those DM anxieties that people feel too. You know, like oh yeah, I got to be prepared and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, hey man, if players are playing with each other, I'm cool. Like that's my kind of benchmark. Like because it's like, man, I don't want to just be the only one talking to everybody for like 3 hours. It's like talk to each other. Like you're living in the same world. Let me listen
Well,
to you.
that was a lot of my early days of gaming.
Sure.
There wasn't the cross table talk that
Yeah.
that I'm so used to
It
now.
makes it so, yeah, yeah. So I was same here, and it's like, boy, it's so much more fun like that when you're like really thinking like, of being in that situation with the other player's character. I like that a lot. I'm glad I have kind of
So when you talk
discovered
to other players at the table, you don't feel invisible.
that. Wow, nice save, man! At the 0 hour, boom. That's right up on the time.
Yeah.
That's how we do it, folks. Like a Swiss watch every Monday.
So any last minute, questions, last minute plot threads. We see, Chris has got a statement about, possessing a ring, a scroll, that kind of stuff.
That's a cool idea too. Yeah.
No,
And maybe they don't get pressured like they could if they were easily disproved. I wouldn't push the point, but it could be a cool way to involve them. Maybe they would be experts then, like they might be consulted or just suspects and then turned into like case consultants too. Like, well, about invisibility. Like, can you help us? That may be pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean,
All of a sudden, the thief with the cloak of invisibility is like, I'm on the city guard payroll as a consultant. Okay.
if you've got the process of being able to look at, oh, we're now a suspect, we're now a problem, like that pulls them into that story, and maybe after they're cleared, okay, maybe they're free, maybe they're not. It really again is going to depend upon um,
Just be careful the party doesn't murder the people that come to question him. Like, how dare you accuse us? I attacked the guards. Like,
it's going to depend upon, again, how much they want to be involved in that plot.
Yeah.
If they're cleared, they could be cleared, and off they go. Or they could be like, all right, well, somebody's got our names now in the books. We need to be good. We need to be cleared.
Oh boy, if ne'er do wells were either intended to originally or picked up on that, like, hey, let's pin everything on these guys. There's so much crazy stuff you can do with invisibility to mess with players and doppelgangers, and
you can definitely go down a long dark road of all the ways that PCs could be incriminated.
Yeah, wow.
But perhaps that's a chat for another time.
Mm-hmm.
We are past the 9 o'clock hour. As stated, come back for the couple of games this week, Tuesday and Friday night, here on the channel. Dave will be back with all of the, fun live chats this week.
I can't believe he booked Amanda Knox. It's crazy.
That is definitely cool. Something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And until next time,
stay nerdy.